A few weeks ago, I did a video on what Germany is buying after they announced their $100 billion special fund for rearmament. You can find it here if you're interested. Well, since then, more information has come out. And today, I want to go through a very interesting topic. What Germany is scaling back or likely to scale back from U.S. suppliers. This isn't a question of whether Germany will buy U.S. stuff anymore, but rather, it's increasingly looking like an issue of which U.S. suppliers will get fewer contracts and which European ones will get more. It's an important issue for both sides of the Atlantic because this will impact the economic base of the defense industries of both regions. So let's talk about it. First off, not every U.S. supplier contract has been canceled or reversed, but the trend is moving away from them in several key areas. We know that the percentage of planned procurements from U.S. firms is reportedly going to be about 8% under the new strategy. That implies many existing or potential contracts with U.S. companies will either be reduced or replaced. Here are some of the big trends. And first of all, there have been signals that Germany wants to reduce reliance on systems like Patriot missile defense, historically U.S.-made, in favor of European alternatives. In fact, a request for information issued by the BAAIN, the office responsible for armaments in mid-January, did uneven include the U.S.-made Patriot system among the topics it was seeking information on. Instead, the RFI specifically mentioned the European-made solutions, like the medium-range NASAMS system using the AMRAAM missile. Indeed, the lack of Patriot in this list is striking, given that historically Germany has relied on the system for its air defense requirements. So that's certainly a sign of things to come. Secondly, fewer dollars going into foreign supply chains for defense, especially where European firms can provide alternatives. This means us giants may lose out on parts of future tenders. Now, I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of this is about the future. Some programs and purchases may never happen. And even if they do, they may take years and years to materialize. For example, the MGCS, the main ground combat system that is supposed to replace the Leopard 2 in Germany and the Leclerc in France, is expected to enter service only around 2040. Nevertheless, we can see some trends emerging already. Let's start with air defense. Germany has started talking about expanding its short-range air defense capabilities to counter the threat posed by Russia. Last year, it purchased 35 NASAMS launchers, and in January, they placed an order for 80-plus RAM Surface-to-Air missiles. These missiles, however, are not exclusively American-made. They feature a number of European components. Furthermore, the German-made Iris-T air defense system is getting increasing attention as a potential way to bolster Germany's air defense capabilities in the short term. Another area of interest is artillery. In late 2021, Germany ordered 700,000 rounds of 155mm artillery ammunition from the Spanish company Expal. This followed a previous order for 300,000 rounds in 2020. These are the first orders for artillery shells from a non-U.S. supplier in over 25 years. The German army had previously always received its supplies of standard NATO-caliber ammunition from the United States. I should mention that in both these cases, the suppliers were selected through a competitive process in which international and national suppliers could submit offers. The U.S. wasn't necessarily the default winner, due to the close relationship between Germany and the U.S. Moreover, I think these are good examples of why Germany would choose European suppliers. Interoperability, compatibility, logistics, ease of training, support, etc. Choosing something European-made just makes sense in many ways. That being said, one shouldn't interpret this move as a boycott of U.S. weapons. As recently as March 6, 2022, Germany signed a deal with the U.S. around security of supply to ensure cooperation on industrial resources in case of disruption. This includes supplies of critical raw materials, microelectronics, as well as cybersecurity. On the same day, Germany also signed a similar agreement with France. So clearly, the idea is to diversify risk across several nations. Furthermore, some major U.S. origin systems may still be retained, especially where there are no immediate European substitutes. Germany has agreed to purchase 35 F-35 jets from the U.S. in a deal worth $8 billion. This will cover the Luftwaffe's need for stealth fighters for the foreseeable future. Given the lack of pan-European fighter or attack aircraft projects and the long lead times involved, this is probably a wise decision. Germany is also maintaining its fleet of 122 F-16s for now. Interestingly, though, some are going to be upgraded with the but American-compatible, Levi-active electronically scanned array radar, which is cheaper than the original APG-81 radar. And finally, Germany maintains a strong presence of U.S.-made equipment in its arsenal, including some 450-plus M1A to Abrams tanks, although these may be eventually replaced by the Leopard 2. A 7V, which coincidentally uses a number of American components itself. So overall, Germany is trying to invest in European capabilities where possible, and where such capabilities exist. It is going to result in fewer contracts for U.S. suppliers. And indeed, this has been noted by U.S. defense firms themselves. In a recent conference call, Lockheed Martin CEO James Ticklet said that his company was expecting a 20% decline in sales to Germany in 2022 compared to 2021. Much of that would be tied to fewer F-35 purchases, but he also cited concerns over Patriot PAC-3 production cuts. Now it's important to understand that Germany is not eliminating U.S. suppliers altogether, but rather it's investing in European ones as well. And I think there are two reasons behind this. First, it's a desire to rely less on single countries for security. This is true for many Europeans, not just Germans, who may remember the times when European security was seen as something that America was in charge of, while Europeans paid a small percentage of the bill. Those days are gone. Today, Europeans are ready to pay more and take more control over their own defense. And second, it's an attempt to strengthen the European defense industry, which has suffered from a brain drain over the past decade. Many European firms have fallen behind their U.S. competitors in terms of research and development investment, and thus technological edge. Germany hopes to correct that. A recent report by the Kiel Institute calculated that the German government awarded roughly 24 billion euros worth of contracts to the defense industry in 2021. Out of that amount, 64% went to domestic companies and 36% to foreign ones, of which 14% went to the U.S., while the rest came from other NATO countries and non-NATO countries. The share of German companies increased from 58% in 2015 to 64% in 2021, which I think is indicative of the trend we're seeing. This is unlikely to be popular in the U.S., which may see it as a betrayal, or at least a reversal of the post-Cold War status quo. But I don't think it's irreversible. If the U.S. comes up with new capabilities that are game-changing, there's no reason to assume that Germany wouldn't want to buy them. After all, some of the most advanced capabilities in the world still come from the U.S., but that will require a serious commitment by Congress to invest in R&D, something that hasn't really happened in the past decades. As you can see, Germany is not only buying a lot of European equipment, but it's also investing heavily in developing such capabilities. As a result, a number of German defense firms have seen their stocks rise significantly since the invasion of Ukraine. Rheinmetall, Hensoldt, ESG, and others have all seen their shares increase by roughly 50% or more since the beginning of the year. That being said, the firms face significant challenges ahead. In order to ramp up production to meet domestic and export needs, they will need to hire thousands of new employees, probably tens of thousands. They will also need to convince wary investors that the post-Cold War peace dividend era is really over. It won't be easy, but it's certainly possible. As for the U.S., I think the message is clear. Europeans are willing to pay more for their own defense, and they're also demanding more capable equipment. And even though there will be business opportunities on both sides of the pond, Europeans will try to take care of their own as much as they can. Maybe it's time for the U.S. to do the same. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments below. I always reply to those and carry on the conversation. Once again, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.